Hi, this is Ron from the... Which one am I doing? Second String. God, it flipped on me. Hi, this is Ron from Second String Spandex, and you're listening to Second String
Spandex.
from Slinky String Spandex. This is your captain. Please keep your head, arms, legs, and private parts inside the podcast at all times. Hi, this is Ron from what's it called? Second String Spandex. Hi, this is Ron from Spandau Ballet, and you're listening to Southsider Studios podcast system. Hi, this is Ron from Southsider Studios. You're listening to Shit I Can't Read. Wow! Hi, this is Ron from Second String Spandex, and I might be an idiot.
Psst, hey, you got Stitcher? Well, we're on it, so get it! Southsider Studios now on Stitcher. Stitcher is an award-winning provider of news and talk radio for your mobile phone. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 19 of Cinesmack, the podcast that throws your favorite and not-so-favorite movies into the ring to find out which one has the larger cinematic muscles. And joining me, as usual, are our three panelists, Mr. Tom Haggis.
Hey, everybody. My belly button hurts. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
Sam Twomey.
Good evening, everyone.
Gabriel Rowald.
Good evening.
And our special guest for this month is the host of Character Smack, Dennis McCullough.
Hello.
Welcome, Dennis.
Oh, I thank you. How is everybody today?
It's been up and down.
Yeah. I know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on to the monkey announcing what we're going to do tonight. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, astronauts and terranauts, welcome to tonight's main event. In the first quarter, released in 2003, directed by John Amiel, starring Aaron Eckhart, Hilary Swank, and Delroy Lindo, The Core. In the second quarter, released in 2007, directed by Danny Boyle, starring Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, and Chris Evans, Sunshine.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's kick it off with Gabe. How about you?
All right, so we're going to start out with writing. And I think, I don't want to steal too much of Tom's thunder because he's warned us what he was going to kind of talk about here. But I think with these two particular movies, The Core and Sunshine, I think a lot of the writing has to revolve around the kind of the science or at least the pseudoscience that they present. I guess I'm not sure that any movie is really going to be truly scientifically accurate. And if it is, it might not be that much fun to watch. So I think it just has to be, it comes down to plausibility. What sounds most plausible? What seems most sensible, and what can you explain in the most reasonable way? And I think both of these movies try to accomplish that. They try to present difficult scientific principles in a way that an average viewer can understand and enjoy, and in a way that doesn't get in the way of the storytelling or the character building. So, I think what it comes down to for me for the writing is which of those two actually accomplishes that the most convincingly. The one where the science makes kind of sense and stays out of the way of the entertainment. And, just to give a couple of quick examples, in the core, there's the part where the birds, all the pigeons are disoriented because the core of the earth has stopped spinning, and they align themselves based on the magnetic fields that the spinning core creates, and they can't align themselves, and so they basically can't fly at all, and so they're just all over. It's literally like directly out of the birds. It seems it's like they just pulled that scene out of the birds. These birds just go crazy all of a sudden, and while there may be some truth to that, I mean, there are all kinds of migratory species that they believe use the magnetic poles of the earth to find their way. Monarch butterflies being one of them, and I'm sure migratory birds. But I just thought it was kind of goofy. First of all, that they selected a species that wasn't migratory. They were pigeons, and maybe they still align themselves with the magnetic fields of the earth. I don't know, but they were disoriented, just flying short distances, and they were all over the place, crashing into people and cars. And then the other thing that bothers me about it is that, okay, if you're driving a car and birds suddenly swoop in the windows and are in your way, do you just pound on the accelerator? Do you just keep driving and hope that the birds go away? Or do you put on the brakes and stop so that you don't tip over your double-decker bus in the middle of the street and
But it's not dramatic.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. You're right. It's not very cinematic to be sensible, I suppose. So, and there's all kinds of things. I'll save some for other people to discuss. But there are all kinds of things in the core that are what I would call kind of pseudoscientific, that kind of smack of scientific plausibility, but just in the end just seem kind of ridiculous. And I think Sunshine is a little bit more successful in presenting us with plausible scientific details to the movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that it's entirely successful, and I think part of the reason that it seems a little bit better is because it kind of doesn't spend a lot of time on it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't go into explaining in detail how they're doing, what they're doing, and that kind of thing. So I think from a writing standpoint and from a scientific plausibility standpoint, I would have to give my vote to Sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Gabe.
Yep.
Let's move on over to Tom.
All right. The core has got to be, one of the laziest written script I've ever seen in my entire life. Here's the thing, is that hundreds of people worked on this film, and I put a lot of the blame on the writer, because the writer was all he or the two of them had to sit down at a computer and come up with the story. And the problems that they run into, the scientific problems that they run into, are so easy to fix. Mm-hmm. Here, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna fix the core script in 5 minutes. Okay, so here's all they had to do. Okay. Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Hi, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? I had some questions. I'm writing a movie script.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
That's it. Okay. Maybe they called a scientist and said, "Hey, here's the idea that we have. Do you see any problems that we might run into when we try to, scientifically explain this?" Because it's a lot easier to deal with those problems when it's just you and your computer and the words. But no, they waited, they produced it, and they hired hundreds of people, and they all put their name on it, and they got, $1 Million Baby and Harvey Two-Face in it, and the whole thing completely falls apart because there's no script. And it was here's an idea. if you're taking a train to the center of the Earth and you've designed it so that the cars can detach from the train in the event of an emergency, how about you put the cars in order of importance? The weapons controls in the back might not be the best idea. Maybe, living quarters should be the first car to go, not the one that controls the nuclear weapons. So anyway, it was a horrible, horrible script.
Tom, they didn't have time to think about that. They didn't have time to design it. They had to do this all
from the hip
in just a few months or whatever it was. They didn't have time. I mean, even scientists, they need time.
And sure, maybe there's some unwritten reason where like, no, weapons control best be put in the back. It made no sense, and ultimately it didn't make any decision because the whole thing got screwed. I would have been much happier if everyone had died at the end, and not just not the people in the ship, but the entire planet had died. Because then I would have had a feeling of empathy that as these people's lives were being vaporized by the sun, that I'd be like, that's how I feel. And it would have, actually would have made a little bit more sense. Sunshine, on the other hand, is written by the amazing Alex Garland, who has written some of my favorite books and my favorite movies. And, I can't say enough good things about it. It's such a great story. And, there's not too much talking. Oh my God, is there enough exposition in the core? Dear Lord, it's just like, I'm going back to the core again. But it's just like, I was like, no, we got to explain this. I'm like, you can explain it, but you're still going to be wrong. That's not how the Earth works, But anyway, I digress. I'm going to give my vote to the core. Nope, just kidding. I'll give it to Sunshine, and I don't know. Maybe the core will get lucky.
Right. Sam.
Well, I agree with our first two panelists when it comes to a lot of the writing in the core. I think it was almost, it felt like it was unimportant for them to have a story structure. I think in a lot of ways they felt that, you get all these big stars and you have all these, scenarios, and then at the end you get a cheer and people will enjoy it, and maybe they won't look as deep into it because it's at the time, I guess it was probably a summer blockbuster. That's what it felt like anyway.
I believe it came out in March, actually.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
No, not a problem.
I just it has a lot of really core elements of story that other panelists have already talked about, and just some moments that felt really forced in there, like you're going to get that scene where you have the control room cheering. By the time they got there, it was just so like, oh, please don't show this scene. And little things like the computer hacker getting into the Defense Department network, and the only confrontation that the general says is he kind of looks at him and he's playing Pong, and that's it. There's no other no confrontation there. There's no. It's like, oh, well, I guess he must not have hacked into anything then. He's playing Pong. There's a lot of those little things where they just kind of, realistically, they don't follow up on what would probably happen in those kind of situations. And there's just some ridiculous lines, like at the end in the core, they're talking about what they're going to do. And he's like, I'm going to go have a pizza. And just other things, other character traits that are written in there, like Stanley Tucci's character. He's such a smoker inside this, which I don't know if it would be possible for him to smoke inside there, because wouldn't they have to have some kind of
oxygen?
Probably wouldn't even been possible at all. But regardless, like his character was just kind of very stock, very villainish. It was kind of boring. Like the first half actually was. It started out okay, and then by the time they actually got inside the ship and for the rest of the journey, it was hard to watch. And I think a lot of that was the writing. We'll talk about the acting and directing in later later segments tonight. I really enjoyed Sunshine. On the other hand, I thought that it provided a nice shell for the actors to work within, and it gave you just enough information about their characters and insights into their characters, and also kind of foreshadowing of what may happen in the end. Mm-hmm. I think Sunshine was a very tightly written script. It was 107 minutes as opposed to the core's 135 minutes, and it felt it felt tight. And I bet it was a very streamlined screenplay. And for me, hands down, writing has to go to Sunshine.
All right. Thank you,
just to add to a little bit of what Sam was talking about, he said it felt like a summer blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dennis said, well, it was released in March. Well, I think, Sam, you're right. It does feel a lot like a summer blockbuster movie. But I looked up other films that came out the same year, and I imagine what they did was probably release it at a different time because they're like, we can't compete against this. Because Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King came out that year. Mystic River, Finding Nemo, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Kill Bill, and stuff like that. And I imagine all that kind of stuff was, those sound like summer blockbuster movies too, and they probably didn't want to compete. So they were like, let's see if we can make some money on this instead of just tanking.
Well, it's funny you guys bring that up. It was actually supposed to come out, originally slated for release on November 1st of 2002. The film was pushed back 5 months to give the visual effects crew more time to perfect the CGI scenes.
Those awesome special effects. I didn't take that into account.
Yeah,
my fault.
Yeah. They upgraded from Windows 98 to 2000, and
that's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard of.
all right, Dennis.
Okay. Again, kind of echoing what everybody else said, with a few little. I don't know. I take a different approach to movies for some reason. The writers for the core, John Rogers, Cooper Lane. John Rogers actually got a degree in physics, so I'm guessing that's probably why he didn't call the Jet Propulsion Laboratories. But sadly enough, he left a career in physics to pursue stand-up comedy, and then
so he was bad at science.
Makes sense.
Yeah, he already had his science, but he's currently working on, or John Rogers is currently he's working on shows like Leverage right now. He also helped write the first Transformers script, but he also wrote Catwoman. But anyways, I'm not even going to mention.
It sounds
Jackie
like he
Chan.
does have a future in comedy.
Right. Yeah, because Catwoman was just phenomenal, wasn't it?
Right, it was a joke.
Well, phenomenal is a word, but yeah, phenomenally horrible.
No,
maybe.
but of course, he also he also was a writer on the Jackie Chan Adventures. What can I say? I liked that show. What can I say?
So he's a shit writer, basically. I mean, it's like, sorry, but I mean,
Jackie Chan Adventures was a kids show.
Sure.
So kind of played to an audience that might understand him better. The other guy wrote The Fog, Cooper Lane. He's one of the writers on The Fog as well, in which I thankfully missed that one. I didn't hear good things about it, but there was actually some science in there. I actually looked this up. The science for the core, I could actually tell you briefly what was true about it versus everything else. Everything else, it's like the geological science of the Earth's makeup, as well as the high-altitude auroras, the rotation of the liquid core, the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and the Mariana Trench were accurate. The rest of the movie was whatever they could throw up against the wall. And then, sadly enough, my professor in college, he always said that Armageddon is a prime example of a perfect movie with all the peaks and valleys, up and down, and the core very much felt like that. Not saying it was good. It's just this is how you write a good script, because something goes bad.
You're talking about structure, right?
Right, structure of the script. It was actually fairly solid. It's just at the same time, it takes more than just a writer to completely botch a movie. And so where Sunshine, I actually lost my notes on the science for Sunshine. Sorry about that. But at the same time, I think it was Tom who said it. They didn't really struggle too much with the science. It was just, this actually showed more of a human element, how they all would interact with each other. And it was very, very well cast from what I can tell. I've never seen Michelle Yeoh do a bad movie. Even Kung Fu Panda 2, I did like that. So as far as writing goes, though, I have to give this to Sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. One of the scientific experts consulted for the making of the core was Dr. David Stevenson at Caltech. Currently, you can see him on the street corner begging for money. Sorry, no, it doesn't say that. After talking to the producers, he thought of a scientifically possible way to send an unmanned probe to the core. His idea was published in the prestigious science journal Nature on 15th of May, 2003.
That was the first thing I thought too. It's like, why do there have to be people in it?
Right.
Why can't they just send like some sort of robotic?
The acting would have been better, that's for sure.
Dr.
But
Brian
it would have been able to get itself unstuck from the geode.
Yeah.
There's that.
And have to have living quarters. And Dr. Brian Cox from CERN and Manchester United acted as Sunshine's science advisor. His wife was involved in production of the movie's blog. So they did bring some scientists in. I don't know what Dr. David Stevenson is doing now. Probably working at McDonald's after everyone saw his movie that he helped out with. So anyway, let's move on to acting. And we'll push it over to Tom. You're up.
Hang on a second. I got to light a candle on my Stanley Tucci shrine. Just a second.
I love Stanley Tucci.
He's fantastic, isn't he?
Yes.
And he has such a great eye for the script and knows what the movie's about. It really seemed like he was the only one that was in on the joke when they were doing the core. Like everyone else is like, oh my God, this is going to be the 2001 of Space Odyssey of 2003. Or I don't know. But then, and Stanley Tucci, they're just like, hey, Stanley, we're going for sandwiches. He's like, no, I'm going to have some scenery later. I'll be fine. And I think that it's really like he was the only one that really knew how silly and campy the core was, and every other part of the movie takes itself so seriously that he just gives us really, really great performance against this very odd background, which is really strange because, I mean, Aaron Eckhart is a pretty decent actor, and Hilary Swank has won an Oscars. I mean, I know that she can act. I know it's in there. She won 2.
I think so, didn't she? Or was she just nominated twice?
I'll look it up. Keep talking.
All right. So anyway, there's that. And I really liked watching Stanley Tucci and throwing himself into it. But at the same time, and I think I said this before when we did Armageddon Deep Impact, that when it comes to apocalyptic end of the world movies, I really like watching how humans react to those situations of, the life and death situations, whether it's just them or the entire world, that kind of thing. And I really, really like that interaction in Sunshine. And it's done so well and so subtly. It's not over the top and really grand. And I'm going to just kind of gloss over the whole pinbacker thing until we get to the overall thing, because I know that that's a problem that people have with the movie in general. But the acting in Sunshine is so even compared to the core, where it's, crazy Stanley Tucci with these other, serious actors and everything else. And so I really, really like Sunshine for that too. So I'd give my vote to Sunshine because I've lost track. Have I been talking too long? It's like,
nope.
Oh my God, it's been like 45 minutes.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so anyway, there you go. I give it to Sunshine.
All right, thank you. Hilary Swank has won 2 Academy Awards.
Was one of them for the core?
Yes, one was for the core.
Right,
and,
yes.
Another guy that I really like is Delroy Lindo. He's a great character actor, but he just felt really off in the core. But Stanley Tucci, yeah, he's the man.
It really was like Delroy shot all his scenes, and then Stanley Tucci and him were in the coffee room later, and Stanley Tucci's like, "Oh my God, I'm just like chewing scenery, and this is hilarious." And Delroy's like, "Wait, what?" Nobody told me we're doing.
All right, let's move on to Mr. Twomey.
Yeah, I think, the core has a really great cast. They've all done some amazing work in lots of other films. And this actually wasn't the best for a lot of them. I think some of that has to go to the writing and also to the directing of the film itself. But there were several scenes in here that I felt that were very painful to watch in the core, with some actors that I do, usually enjoy watching. I think some of the scenes that I felt were just laughable, where they're supposed to be showing emotion reaction to someone dying or something of that nature. After the captain of the ship dies, and it's Hilary Swank and Aaron Eckhart wakes up and finds out that he's dead. Like, it just feels so forced. Like, none of the emotion that they show in there reads as real at all to me. I mean, there's just a lot of, I think, and some of it is the material that they were performing, and some of it may have been the directing. But I mean, some of their performances were laughable. They weren't serious. And contrast that to Sunshine, where I agree with Tom. I think there's a lot. It was very even in there, and there was also some very nuanced performances. Some things, it wasn't always about what the actor was saying, but how they were reacting to their environment, and a lot of nonverbal stuff in Sunshine. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to save a lot of time, and I easily give my vote for acting to Sunshine.
All right, thank you, Sam. Dennis.
Okay. As far as the core goes with acting, there honestly did not seem to be a lot of chemistry between the cast. As a director, that's the first thing I noticed. There was absolutely no chemistry going on there. And just quickly going, Aaron Eckhart, I personally wasn't impressed. Like Sam just said, he was actually very inconsistent through the movie. Hilary Swank, it's like she phoned it in. I'm just getting a paycheck here. Mm-hmm. Checky Cario, I believe, he did okay. Wasn't blown away. I wasn't repulsed. Bruce Greenwood, not much. I mean, he seems to have found a niche in Hollywood playing surrogate fathers, because he was also the captain in Star Trek, the new one. Mm-hmm. DJ Qualls, I don't know he's playing himself, and I don't know what the hell he was doing on the flight deck, but he shouldn't have been there. At the end of that was for the record, that was actually the ship I was on in the movie.
I was going to bring that up earlier. Thanks for stealing my thunder.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right.
That is the ship I was on. There's no way in hell they would have let him out on the flight deck. Stanley Tucci and Delroy Lindo, though, this is where I might take a little difference here. I honestly thought they did the best in the cast of the two of them. From what I saw, they both played off each other very well. Stanley Tucci, he did the best. He fell right into the role. He was enjoying playing it. Like Tom said, it's almost like he was the only one in on the joke. But he completely immersed himself in the character. And I mean, for somebody to select Steve Rogers, that's really not a bad deal right there. And like I said, Delroy, you can honestly, at times, you could actually feel the just loathing coming off of him for Stanley Tucci's character. Whereas then you've got the core. Excuse me, not the core, but you got Sunshine.
Did you just have a stroke? You all right?
I might need to go see a doctor.
Okay. I'll take you after we're done.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But no, Cillian Murphy, it honestly took me a little bit to figure out that he was the main character of the show, because everybody else, it was a very realistic, very human element with their acting. They all played off each other very well. I mean, Scarecrow and Captain America team up. Again, this where the cores seem to all be just really bad individual acting. The core was very much an ensemble. Everybody played off of each other.
You mean Sunshine?
Yes, Sunshine. Oh, I did have a stroke.
Yeah, you did.
Anyway, but yeah, Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans actually impressed me because I did not expect him to turn in that kind of a performance. He just, I'm not used to seeing him like that, as what he's basically showing that he can act, and it's everything else he pretty much does for the money. And so, but acting wise, I definitely have to give this one to Sunshine.
All right.
Were you about to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I was just going to say, that's a surprise.
Oh.
All right, let's go. Gabe, you're last up. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like this one's going to be pretty lopsided. And it's kind of interesting, though, that we spend more of our time talking about the movie that we don't like and definitely not very much time talking about the good aspects of the movie that we do like. I'm finding that kind of interesting. And, I'm not really going to stray far from what everybody's been saying so far. But my problem with Sunshine is that the acting is great. The actors are all great, and I think that that comes from great acting talent, but also probably from great directing, which we'll save for the next segment. But the one thing that bothered me a little bit is that as good as acting was, I didn't feel like there was a lot of gravity, pun intended, to these characters, because we didn't really know anything about these characters. We don't know anything about these characters.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Cillian Murphy's character, whose name I don't remember right off the top of my head, we know that he has parents. That's what we know. We know that he's the the onboard physicist. That's what we know. But we don't know anything about his character. Chris Evans' character, Mace, he's angry.
Mm-hmm.
He's an angry jock. He seems to, and he hates Cillian Murphy's character, Robert Capa. He hates him. They fight. They're fighting, and we realize that they're under a lot of stress. I mean, this is quite plausibly the most stressful event that any human being could go through, is flying into the center of the sun to save the rest of the earth. How much more stressful does it get? And that would raise tensions. But why do they hate each other? I don't get it. And the performances are good, but they're not grounded to me. They don't make a lot of sense. And I feel like we got a little bit, I don't know, it wasn't much more in the core. We got a little bit of history about these characters. We got to know something about them and why they were fighting, to save the earth and what motivated them. We got a lot more history about Hilary Swank's character. We know why she was put on this mission. We got to learn more about her and her motivations. And so, and the interesting thing about the core to me was that it was very up and down. It was kind of a roller coaster ride. I felt like maybe I was actually in that vessel with them. And, one moment I'm going through molten lava and the next minute I'm stuck in a geode. It's just, it was a real roller coaster because, there were times where the performances were actually pretty decent and I was kind of getting into it. It's like, oh, this is all right. And then all of a sudden we had some just ridiculousness and the performances were over the top or just really not believable. And so I was taken immediately back out of it. They drew me in. They successfully brought me in, and then they let me go. They sent me out. Whereas Sunshine was consistent. I was consistently in the movie with those characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I did I did feel like I wanted to know more, and I felt like something was missing, and I don't know where to place that. I'm talking about it in the acting segment, but that could have been part of the writing, that these characters weren't fully fleshed out in the writing. It could have been the acting in that the actors didn't care enough to delve into that part of their characters, their past. It could have been the directing. The director said it's not important. We're not going to put that stuff in. We're going to cut that out. It's not important. I don't know where to put it, but that was about the only thing that bothered me about Sunshine. But in the end, I'm going to vote with everybody else. The acting was far superior in Sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. God. I was going to talk and then I choked.
Can you cut that out?
Sorry.
Should I clap?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh.
Cillian Murphy worked with the leading physicist Brian Cox to learn all about advanced physics. This included touring the CERN facility in Switzerland and learned to copy physicists' mannerisms. Murphy ended up copying some of Cox's personal idiosyncrasies, such as his frequent hand movements. Apparently, the stroke is going through Skype and hitting me now.
You're welcome.
The actor also studied Henry George Clout's classic The Wages of Fear to have an understanding of the type of suspense that Danny Boyle was attempting to create. Murphy has claimed that his involvement in Sunshine converted him from agnosticism to atheism. And for the core, they don't really have a lot on acting. So in demonstrating the physics of what is happening, Aaron Eckhart's character uses a peach to make his point. Unfortunately, none of the peaches brought to the set were suitable, so an apple was painted and had a peach stone inserted into its middle.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, now that's a special effect because I thought it was a peach.
I agree. Same here. All right, let's go on to directing. And we're going to move it over to Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Wow, directing. This one I think is a mismatch. I mean, actually, I think this whole bout is a mismatch, to be honest.
I'm starting to feel that way, yes.
We could just cut to the chase as far as I'm concerned. But that would not give me a chance to gush over Danny Boyle. So I'm going to start actually with the core and John Emile, who I was not really familiar with a lot of his work. Probably the only other film of his that I really did enjoy was one he did 2 films before the core with Bill Murray called The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Yes.
And that is just a thoroughly enjoyable comedy. And maybe that's why some of the elements of the core were so comedic in a way, because it was just... When I look at the careers of both of these directors, and no offense to Mr. Emile, I don't see the same gravitas with him as a director as I do with Danny Boyle. Something about Danny Boyle that you look, just even a short list of some of the films that he's done in the last 10 years, and those are some films that I would watch over and over and over again, that are always nuanced, layered, have a real feel to them, and just as far as the acting goes, usually it's balanced. As Tom had said earlier, there's a definite style that Danny Boyle has, and coming off of the 2 films that Danny Boyle did before Sunshine, 28 Days Later, and then Millions, shows in a lot of ways the true range that he has. He can do everything from a really gritty drama such as Trainspotting to more of an ethereal type film like A Life Less Ordinary. Mm-hmm. A really scary new age zombie film that really, in a lot of ways, I think helped breathe life into this huge zombie fascination that we're kind of experiencing as a culture right now. And then to go from kind of reinventing the horror film and giving his take on it to do a really sweet film like Millions, which I hope our audience, if they haven't seen it, will go watch as many Danny Boyle films as you can, because you're going to really get some amazing stories, some dynamic characters. This, I think, Sunshine was kind of a new area for him in the sci-fi area. But it felt as though he'd been directing sci-fi films for years. He was very comfortable, I think, with the genre. Some have criticized that he may have borrowed too heavily at points, from other films such as 2001. I don't really see that at all. I think in some ways, because of the interiors and the settings that you have in some of these science fiction films that are inside spaceships, some of them are going to feel very similar, and you're going to see shots that have been used in other pieces. But I think that's part of the beast. But when it comes down to, when we talked about acting, we talked about how balanced they were, and I think a lot of that credit does go to the director. And obviously, he also had better material to work with here. I think I've spoken way too long about this. It's hands down Danny Boyle. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. He always pleases, and I think he turns in another fantastic performance in a very tightly paced, and very enjoyable science fiction movie. So I'm voting for Sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Sam. D?
Okay. I'd say, looking here, John Amiel, I believe that's how you say it. He's, about to say, probably his favorite movie that I've seen of his was probably Copycat. I didn't, as far as I'm concerned, that's probably his best. He did the best he could with what he had, but then again, at the same time, when you really look at it, the core was actually a little more faster pace than Sunshine, and so, John. It's also looking here. I'm kind of surprised at how few of his movies I've seen. In fact, I know I've seen Entrapment, but not all of it. I never saw The Man Who Knew Too Little. I didn't care to either, sadly enough. But
that's such a great
the core,
movie.
like I said, it's
works at a wait, Dennis, you have to see it because he's from Iowa. He's from Des Moines, isn't that right, guys?
He's from Blockbuster
in Des Moines. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and I'll let you finish here in a second, Dennis. But the best with what he had, like the core had almost triple the budget that Sunshine had. He could have done a lot of things. They could have got a lot better director than they did for that particular piece. But, just add a little smack to Cinesmack.
Right. But no, and I mean at the same time, directing wise, I honestly think he did the best with what he. I think he did the best he could with what he had, especially if he can't get though sadly enough, when it comes to the actors, if you can't get the actors to do what you need them to do, that does fall on you as a director. Whereas Danny Boyle, looking back through his list, I'm surprised at how few of his movies I've seen as well. In fact, the only two other movies I have seen of his are The Beach and A Life Less Ordinary. And so I love A Life Less Ordinary.
All I heard was what?
Sorry, I'm not into zombie movies. I never have been. So 28 Days Later just doesn't, that's just. But again, at the same time, Sunshine was a much slower paced film. And again, when it comes down to it, he was actually able to get what he could out of what he needed to from the film, and just might as well save us all some time here. I'm going to go for Danny Boyle.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. You should check out more of his stuff and watch The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Yeah. And if I had more time, God knows what I could do.
Well, what are you doing? Just log off, forget about your stroke, and start watching some movies.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and log off.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's a little bit lopsided, but the nice thing here is that we're actually talking about what I would consider definitely the better of the two directors, but interestingly for me, I think Sunshine is one of my least favorite Danny Boyle movies. You can pick about just about any one of the others, and they're just stellar. Sam was mentioning things like Train Spotting and Millions, which is really a great, heartwarming movie. I love that movie. And, even things like, Train Spotting, Shallow Grave, all of those I enjoyed more. And how can you go wrong with things like Slumdog Millionaire? But that's just saying something about the body of work. He's just done such great films in such a wide variety of genres and feels. You don't even hardly know that it's a Danny Boyle film sometimes, because it's not like it's just a great movie and then you're like, oh wow, that's Danny Boyle. I can't believe it's the same guy who did this other movie. But I have to say that in that body of work, Sunshine is not one of my top picks of his. I enjoyed it, but I felt a little bit empty at the end, and I can't tell you why. And it might have been related to what I was talking about before. Is there are these characters in this, really heavy situation, but I didn't feel too strongly for them because I didn't know anything about them. These people are going into the middle of the sun, they're dying. So that's where it fell short for me, is kind of that character development. Mm-hmm. But in this section, we also talk a lot about we talk about editing and cinematography, and I have to say a lot about the cinematography for Sunshine. It's beautiful. The movie is beautiful throughout, and I really love the use of contrasting colors. You go from the bright glowing orange of the sun to the nice cool green or blue of the interior of the spaceship, or their that biological bay where they have all the plants. It's a nice, cool, refreshing, inviting green. And you go back and forth between these contrasting colors. There's probably almost a throwaway scene, an insignificant scene, kind of, where the one officer is kind of listening to transmissions, and he kind of puts his head in this laser field. And during that shot, they actually focus on the dust that is in the air.
Yeah.
And the depth of field is razor thin, and you can see this dust swirling in the air, and then the focus shifts to that character's face, and he puts his head into that laser, and it's just like, wow, that is just beautiful. It's gorgeous cinematography, and I think that's the case throughout. Whereas I felt like the cinematography for the core was suitable. It was I don't know. It met the need for the movie, but I never once during that movie did I go, oh, that was really cool. That was a beautiful shot. Look at the lighting, or look at the depth of field, or I just never felt that way. It wasn't so bad that I was drawn to it because it was bad, but it just wasn't ever that good. And I'm afraid maybe I'm basing my decision a little bit on Danny Boyle's body of work and not this specific movie. But compared to the core, direction, hands down, no question, goes to Danny Boyle.
All right.
Well, Gabe, I think you made great points. Sorry to jump in there, but I totally did not even mention the cinematography, which I agree with you 100%. That movie is beautiful. Whatever else you might not like about it, it is just gorgeous to watch.
Yes,
and
absolutely
inspiring in a lot of ways, and in some very, very unique shots, and in what could be very dull.
Yep.
So.
All right, thank you guys, Tom. It's up to you, Tom.
I love Danny Boyle. He is my man. And some of you guys know that I put a question up on Facebook yesterday. Like, if you were on a deserted island, who would you take? Which director you take it to take all their movies with you? And I threw Danny Boyle on there, and that was my guy. I would watch his movies over and over and over and over again. I love them so much, and I learned so much as a filmmaker watching them, because he really, I mean, it's hard to find a standard setup for him. I mean, just in conversation shots are so, dynamic, and it makes me so excited to watch all of his movies. I gotta disagree. I don't think Sunshine is one of his weakest. I think it's one of his best ones. Strangely, I thought 127 Hours was actually kind of his weakest one. I was the most disappointed by that. But I think a lot of that goes towards expectations, because I was very excited to have Danny Boyle put his survival spin on this very pure story of survival, and I was a little disappointed because my expectations were so high for it. Now, and it's a great movie, it really is, but I'm not talking about either of the movies that we picked for this week. So back to John Emile. I don't understand how you can have Stanley Tucci and Hilary Swank and Aaron Eckhart and not get a good performance out of them. I mean, that it's amazing to me that. Maybe he had so many other things going on in terms of, the production, and I have no idea. How do you not get performances out of those people that you need for this kind of movie? And again, the problem that I have with the core is that all of the problems that the core runs into are so easily fixable. You have all of the working parts and everything else. The script stuff is easy to fix. The science stuff is easy to fix. I mean, you have hundreds and hundreds of people that are investing their careers in your film, and to not you're doing them a huge disservice by not putting out the best possible product. And it blows my mind when people spend, in the course case, $60 million on a film, and they just completely blow it on easy crap like that. Danny Boyle, on the other hand, I mean, I love Sunshine so much, and I guess it's time to talk about the part of Sunshine that everybody really hates, and that's the third act, the entire pinbacker sequence and everything else. Everybody says that everybody likes Sunshine, but they see it as it's a sci-fi for 2/3 of it, and then it's a slasher flick for the last. And I think what I really, really love about Sunshine is that there's this element of what happens when religion is injected into science and how they clash. And I really love how he examines that, and how when you start to try and use faith as a reason to fight science, and science is trying to prove fact, and it's this really great dichotomy, and I love the way Sunshine handles it. And yes, it's a little gruesome, and there's a slasher flick element to it, but I don't I see it as such a grander battle that's going on between these two. And I don't think people call Alien a slasher flick,
Right.
but it's got some of the same elements that the last act of Sunshine does.
Right.
So obviously I'm going to give my vote to Sunshine and Danny Boyle, because I just love him so much. If I ever met him, I'd just break down and cry and give him a big hug and say, thank you so much for giving me 9 of my favorite films of all time. And, and I got to tell you too, before we go, I am really, really excited. I've never said this in my entire life. I'm really excited for the opening ceremonies, because they've given it to Danny Boyle to direct the opening ceremonies for the Olympics this year. And next week is going to be, I'm so excited. I got to kind of hedge my expectations a little bit, because I hear they're running into a couple problems, but hopefully, we get to see Danny Boyle direct the opening of the Olympic ceremonies. And I hope they put it on Blu-ray or something, because I'm going to want to watch that over and over again too, because I love his stuff. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. You should probably go take a cold shower now, while we do the rest of the show. I'm
good.
Okay over there?
I'm good.
Okay.
I've got clips of the core on standby to kind of cool me off.
All right. Once again,
Irony.
there's not a whole lot about direction and core trivia. I've looked all over. But Rat's demands changed 3 times during the progression from trailers to final film. In the original trailer, he demands, I want Star Trek tapes and Hot Pockets. In a second trailer, he demands, I want SpongeBob SquarePants tapes and Hot Pockets. And in the final film, he settles for, I want Xena Warrior Princess tapes and Hot Pockets.
Who would have known that SpongeBob would be the least dated of those 3?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Actually,
That's true.
The word tapes kind of throws everything out.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Again, and you can switch out the word tapes for like
Right.
6 other words that would not date it.
Right. Video.
Freaking core.
Danny Boyle and Alex Garland worked on the script of Sunshine for over a year. Then they spent a second year in pre-production, filmed the 3 months, and then spent another year working on editing and the visual effects. Now, how do I put this? Just real quick. I think you can tell the difference. I think you can tell where a director worked on script, worked on pre-production, shot, and then was also part of the editing. It felt like the core didn't really have that. And I like Danny Boyle. I'm not a fanboy like Tom and Sam, but I do really like him, and I agree that he can take any genre and make a great film out of any genre he wants to do. I'm waiting for his Western. But was it 127 hours? Could that be considered a Western? Probably not.
Really.
What would you guys say? No. The script underwent 35 drafts. That's impressive. That's a lot of drafts. But I think it shows just in the final product that Danny Boyle put a lot of himself and his time into the film. And I didn't think it was going to be this much of a blowout, to be honest. Whenever the core is on, I have to watch it for some reason. I know Tom's like me when it comes to disaster flicks, and you just got to watch the disaster flicks because they're just fun and horrible, especially the made-for-TV movie ones. But anyway.
Well, to be clear, I like the disaster to say confined to the plot, not actually spill into acting and directing
right,
and overall performance of the film.
Right.
So.
Let's move on to overall. And we'll start off with Dennis.
Overall, it's one of those things. The core, it's entertaining. It really, I mean, if you're not looking for Shakespeare, you'll be fine. It's a great way to kill an hour and a half or 2 hours or however long that piece of crap really is. But, whereas, it's one of those things. I got a feeling with Sunshine, I'm going to have the same thing with Sunshine as I did with The Dark Knight. Whereas I've seen, in fact, I was there the night you saw it, Mike, the first time in the theater for The Dark Knight, and it's the only time I have seen it. I have not sat down and watched The Dark Knight since it came out. And I got a feeling this is going to be another one of those where it's a great movie. I just don't think I can sit through it again simply because it drags in parts. Whereas the core it does try to keep the plot moving along. Though when in all honesty, overall, I do have to give it to Sunshine. It is a far better film for what it is.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you, D. And the core is 135 minutes and Sunshine is 107 minutes long. So let's move on to Gabe.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a landslide. This might be the first time that it's been a unanimous decision. Have we had a
Don't
unanimous
jinx it
decision
yet.
Before?
Don't jinx it yet.
Oh yeah, somebody might come in the last second and give a vote to the core.
We got the two.
Yeah.
We got the two
I doubt
wild
it's going
cards.
to be me or Tom, so don't screw it.
Yeah, well, I might just do it. So.
I like how Sam chimes in there. It's
Yeah,
not going to be
yeah.
Tom or I.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time. Justifying selecting the core. You know, I'm with Dennis in that the core is definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen. It was definitely entertaining. I enjoyed it, and like I said, there were parts. It was a roller coaster for me. There were parts where I was pulled in, and there were parts where I just was like, pulled out of it and just didn't. I was like, oh, that was dumb. You know, the birds part was kind of dumb. The giant geode thing. I was like, really? I don't know. Maybe there's some science to that. I've never heard that, but it just seems ridiculous. And I guess maybe it wasn't the fact that they ended up in a giant geode near the core of the Earth. It was the fact that they got out and were walking around out there that just bothered me the most. I don't know. It just seemed ridiculous. So, but I didn't hate it. It wasn't the worst movie we've watched in for Cinesmack. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. So, but Sunshine was definitely a far superior movie. They were, interestingly to me, they were only a few years apart too. They were only 4 years apart, and it just seemed like the special effects were far superior. And we've encountered this before too, that somebody makes the most of what they have, because we watched G.I. Joe and District 9, right? Did we compare those two?
No.
Did we not?
Show though.
That would be a good show.
Let's see, how do you compare those two?
Yeah, that's true.
They're not really, but it came up at some point in one of our discussions, I believe, because the budget for G.I. Joe, the first G.I. Joe movie, was just ridiculous, and the special effects were terrible. I was like, oh my god, it looks like amateur cartoon kind of stuff. It's terrible. And the budget just eclipsed the budget for District 9. And District 9 was awesome. I was like, the special effects they did for that budget were incredible. And it's the same here. I'm not sure that they're pretty far apart. But Danny Boyle just did more with less. No question. The sets were better. The special effects were better. The acting was better. The directing was better. Everything was better. Like I said, I'm not sure it's my favorite Danny Boyle movie, but it was interesting. It probably deserves another watch to see what more I could get out of it. Because a lot of times, I feel like I watch a movie, some of the stuff kind of gets past me, and then I see it again, and I see something else. I see something new, and I feel like Sunshine has that potential. It's got that rewatchability that we talk about. So I think no question, hands down, Sunshine gets my vote.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Let's go to Tom.
Gabe, you ignorant slut.
There it is.
What? Okay, I'll change my vote if you really want.
No.
Oh.
The Core is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Oh.
It was.
Did you not watch
disaster.
Birdemic?
Did you ever watch Dungeons and Dragons?
I haven't seen Dungeons and Dragons, and I've seen Birdemic. And The Core is quite possibly one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Oh
boy.
And you know what? And look, here's the thing. Birdemic did what they did with the $50 that they had. The Core spent $60 million.
That's true.
That is
And
true.
watching the credits, I weep for all of these people who are thinking that they're going to be a part of this something really big. And again, it's
paid.
they did get paid.
did
They
get
did get paid, but they also have an IMDb page with The Core on it.
Which did it? It seems to me that it also turned a profit. Did it not?
It's
it actually
14
made
million.
money.
It made 14 million. That's
Yeah,
it.
you can't really seize at 14 million either.
It made $14 million over budget.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Yeah.
cost $60 million to make. It made $74,208,267.
Okay. Well, I mean, and that doesn't. I mean, you're gonna throw in marketing and other stuff like that. But I'm
Right.
sure it wound up. I'm sure it wound up in the black. But still, at the same time, again, the problems that the Core could have fixed were simple problems, and they turned them into these big problems and these big glaring problems. And I feel like it's disrespectful to the people who have brought their talents to your film to not put out the best film you possibly can when you have $60 million to spend. You know what? And when we always talk, and again, we talk about which movie are you going to watch again? And I'm going to watch The Core about 6 or 7 more times because I can't believe.
Oh, you broke up there, Tom. You broke up.
And he's still going.
Oh my God, the Core's stopped.
I'll finish for Tom. The Core sucked. I vote for Sunshine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we got you back.
You got me back. All right.
The Core's
So
spinning
anyway,
again.
I'm gonna watch The Core probably 5 or 6 more times because I can't believe that film was put on celluloid. But at the same time, we have a saying in my house. Sometimes my wife will walk into the living room and go, "Oh my God, you're watching Sunshine again." And Sunshine really is. It's and I'm save this for the overall, but it is really is one of my favorite sci-fi movies and one of my favorite movies. And obviously, I don't know. You know, I don't have anything else to say about the core. I mean, the whole thing is a flaming pile of dung. I didn't find it entertaining. I didn't find it cute. I didn't find it bearable. I thought it was an embarrassment. And I feel it's an insult to all struggling filmmakers out there who are trying to, you know, scratch together a couple $100 to get their film made when studios are putting out crap like this. Do you know how many really great independent films $60 million can fund? It's ridiculous. Yes. It's embarrassing. And
you could
God, it's such a. Can I swear? Can I say a bad word?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's such a piece of shit. I love Sunshine so much. So this was really going to be a bloody contest to begin with, and I made it my goal. So I'm glad we got this out of the way. I'm feeling much better now.
Good.
Good.
I'm going to go see my therapist.
You need a drink.
I've had like 3.
That could be the problem.
Every category.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting me.
Yeah, no problem. Sunshine cost 26 million pounds, and it grossed 32 million pounds. And so, yeah, I mean, that all goes down to just distribution and everything else, and marketing as well. Let's go on over to Sam. Sam, you're closing us out.
Well, you know, when you look at the numbers for Sunshine and the core, I think in a way it's hard to. For these films, it's hard to judge each film based on the numbers because, as everyone else has said, the Sunshine was able to get more bang for its buck, both visuals and acting and just overall product. And it was probably one of the smaller released films that Danny Boyle has ever seen. Mm-hmm. I did see it in the theater. I was lucky enough to watch it at the Fleur. But it did have a relatively limited release compared to the core, and I hate the core. I'm sorry, I really fucking hate the core because, you know, I too enjoy disaster movies. Like, my favorite point in disaster movies is when everyone screams and, like, you have large scenes with people screaming and panicking. Like, I love that stuff. I usually think about there's one thing I like about the core. The kitschiness of crashing the space shuttle in Los Angeles or whatever it is, like that. You know, that's kind of funny to me. It's humorous, and then you get to see Horseface Hilary Swank.
Wow,
you know, just really, you know, badly work her way through that scene, which, you know, she is a good actress. And again, going back to the earlier rounds, you know, how can you have such an incredible cast and get such an absolute shit performances out of them and an overall piece? Like, I look at the core as a true anomaly in that you have so much talent, you have so much money, and then you just get this really, really bad film. And, you know, a lot of times I think of, you know, I have some guilty pleasures that I watch over and over again. One of them is Independence Day. I watch it every 4th of July, and this year was no exception. And there's some really bad stuff in that movie too. But it comes nowhere near the core in that for Independence Day, you kind of get used to, you know, the bad acting at points and kind of the poor plot structure because you just get, you know, caught up in the film itself. Plus, you also have Harvey Fierstein. And this movie, maybe if the core had Harvey Fierstein saying like, oh, no, we got to go to the core. Let's go to the core, David. Better.
Dude, that was better than your Jimmy Stewart. I gotta say.
Can we hear Jimmy Stewart doing Harvey Fierstein? I'm gonna
make requests that Harvey Fierstein makes a regular appearance on the show.
Okay, Cinesmackers. Yeah, we'll make sure that Harvey comes out every once in a while. I mean, even though Harvey's been out for years, obviously. But yeah, core total piece of crap. Sunshine, I really enjoyed it. And, you know, and to add a little bit of more smack to it, you know, I think a couple times tonight, Dennis, you've commented on how slow or ill-paced Sunshine was. And I think you're way off base. I think you're watching a different film. I think it's a very tight film, actually. And I think each scene is almost the perfect amount of time, and it's very well structured. And I don't necessarily agree with the people that, you know, talk about the slasher element to the last act. it's very sci-fi, and I think someone earlier said something about Aliens has very similar aspects as well. I think it's a very well paced film, and I think it's a wonderful film actually.
There we go.
So I am so proud to give our first landslide victory to one of the films that we've done. It's never been more deserved. I have to go overall with Sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Hey, Sam, I'm sending Danny Boyle a bunch of flowers. Did you want to throw in on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'll put your name on.
All right.
Hey, if we
Sam.
can get him to be on the show, that would be awesome. Maybe we can get him to be a guest on the show.
Leave out the nudie pics, you guys. Just leave out the nudie.
I would not be able to partake in that show because I would be drowning in my own pool of tears.
I was about
Wow.
to say, Sam, would you actually kind of compare the core to Ishtar with such great talent and yet just an absolute crap product?
Possibly. I've never been a Warren Beatty fan, so I mean,
Well, then there you go.
I wouldn't necessarily do that. I mean, they're both bad movies. The difference is the core actually made money, so that's why people don't dog it as much as they do Ishtar.
Right.
Fair
It's
enough.
just, I really don't want to watch the core again. I won't even watch it to see. Yeah, the thought of all that wasted money on it, and it's like this is the second time I saw it. Part of their gross is that $8 that I spent way back in 2003, and I wish I had the $8 right now.
Well, to be honest, I wanted to see it in the theaters, and then I started thinking about it, and I never did see it in the theater. So the only time I've ever seen it is when it's been on TV, like TNT, TBS, whatever they show it on. But we keep coming back to the acting, and I think that's a big deal here. Before we go on to, I don't really have to do too much math tonight, but you've got Glenn Morshower, who is one of my favorite character actors as well in the core. He was on 24. He's been in all the Transformers films. He's just a great guy. He played Aaron on the last few seasons of 24, the Secret Service agent. And then you have Bruce Greenwood, who I think is phenomenal. And you guys, Hilary Swank, Aaron Eckhart, and Delroy Lindo, Stanley Tucci, and it's just, to me, I think what happened was a studio's like, okay, well, we have $60 million laying around. Let's go ahead and get all these names and give it to this actor that is more of a comedy director, or give it to this director that's more of a comedy director, and just let him go with it. I don't think there's any other way you can explain it. There's not a whole lot out there about the director and what he did with the core. There's no information about him having hands on like Danny Boyle did, and I think that's maybe these two movies. It's not coming down to the movies; it's coming down to the directors. To be honest, who's better, Danny Boyle or whatever this guy's name is? John Emile. I didn't think it was going to be so lopsided. I honestly thought there might be a few things in there for the core, but I never dreamt it was going to be this lopsided. I
think it's best if you don't put too much thought into it, Mike. It's kind of like taking a big dump and being like, "Hey, look, there's corn in there."
Right. I
Stanley
don't.
Tucci's the corn.
Stanley Tucci's the corn. He's standing out.
There's corn in there, but I don't remember eating corn.
Yeah, it boggles my mind how you could take that much money and just throw it away. It did make money, but like Tom said, you know how many independent films that could have paid for? And I mean, at our budgets, hell, we would be happy with $1 million. I mean, you could do 60 films for $1 million. And guaranteed some of them might make the money back. It hurts. It really, really hurts. And I think I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go on to you guys. Let's go on to your recommendations while I get the monkey ready.
I'm actually kind of curious, what is the average budget for one of those sci-fi movies that manages to get greenlit?
About $20. Sorry, $30.
No,
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, let's go on. We'll go up back to the top. We'll start with Gabe.
Okay, well, I usually, for my recommendations, I usually like to try to kind of stick with kind of the theme that we're talking about, a movie that's in the same genre or by, stars the same actor or, has the same director, that kind of thing. But this time I did not. I had put a movie in my Netflix queue that I wanted to see in theaters but missed, and it came in not too long ago, and I got a chance to watch Drive. And I would definitely recommend Drive. It's an interesting movie. We were talking about beautiful movies. It's beautifully shot. It's in it's a very nice movie to look at, and it's well acted. It's kind of understated from an acting standpoint. It's very quiet and even in the violent moments, it's an interesting movie because it's very quiet, and then all of a sudden there are these shots of violence, very graphic violence, very kind of disturbing violence that come out of nowhere. But even then, it's kind of understated, even when it's graphically violent. And it's one of my again, I have a complaint in that we don't know a lot about the characters. We don't learn about the characters that much, but it's still a very, very kind of interesting movie and kind of an interesting character study in what these people will do in these kinds of desperate situations. And I'd be curious to hear people's interpretations of the ending of the movie. What happened in the end, and I won't spoil it right now, but it would be interesting to hear what people thought actually happened. So my recommendation this month is the movie Drive.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Tom?
Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to throw everybody a curveball, and I'm going to recommend a Danny Boyle movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming.
I'm going all the way back to his roots, and we're going to go to his first big feature film, which is a movie called Shallow Grave with Ewan McGregor. It was Ewan McGregor's first movie, too, from 1994. I saw this movie. This is one of those movies that I picked up in college, and I saw it before we saw Trainspotting. Before Trainspotting came out and really put Danny Boyle and Ewan McGregor on the map. And it's this very tight story about three roommates in Edinburgh, and they come across a suitcase of money, and it's this mind game of how they're going to keep the money, and it's very violent, and it's this really cool character piece about they're taking sides and who's going to turn on the other one, and they're constantly playing these mind games with each other about who's going to get the money, and it is a fantastic film, and it's so well shot and so well paced, and the script is written by John Hodge, who also wrote Trainspotting. And right away with Shallow Grave, became one of my favorite films, going almost 20 years ago. And luckily for me, I shouted for joy a couple weeks ago, the Criterion Collection, who always do such a great job putting out older films. They put out a copy of Armageddon for some reason. I have no idea.
Hey, I own that copy.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It's awesome. All the behind the scenes stuff is awesome on that.
And they always do such a great job. And typically, and in general, they stick to very independent films or very foreign, hard to find foreign films.
Agreed.
And a couple weeks ago, they put out Shallow Grave in Criterion, and it's so beautiful, and it's better than I've ever seen it. Because up until this point, I'd only seen it, full screen VHS, and I got to actually sit down and watch Danny Boyle's beautiful compositions up on the screen, and I would definitely recommend it. And I know the Criterions are a little bit more expensive; they run like $30, and you can't really rent them. It is worth it because Shallow Grave is just a masterpiece, and it's absolutely one of my favorite Danny Boyle films. And that's saying a lot because, as you all know, I love them all like children that I cannot hold.
All right.
Okay, just really quickly, I have a funny story about Shallow Grave. Just really quickly.
We don't have time for it, Gabe.
Shut up, Mike. Shut up.
The first time I saw it, I had been working on a made-for-TV movie, a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie that was being shot near Iowa City. And I lived in Iowa City at the time, and I was working on this movie. And I was working from roughly 4 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night, 6 days a week. And then my girlfriend and I at the time, at the end of that really long, grueling week, we rented Shallow Grave. And of all the movies, I never fall asleep during movies. And of all the movies to fall asleep during, I fell asleep during Shallow Grave. I couldn't make it. The first time I saw it, I was so exhausted, I fell asleep. And I fell asleep partway in and then woke up at the very, very end. And so I saw the beginning and the end and nothing in the middle. So I'm like, really? Like that movie I'm going to fall asleep to, of all movies. But eventually, of course, I saw it later and enjoyed it in its full glory.
It's so good. And it's so funny. It's a very amusing movie, but very violent. And it really
Definitely.
is. It's
disturbingly violent. Yeah.
Disturbingly violent. Yeah. And it's funny. I go back and I watch it again, and it's I don't know if I would say it's graphically violent in the ways that a lot of like Saw and Hostel and those kind of movies are today. Because a lot of times when you go back to 1994 and you watch it, you're like, oh, isn't that violence so cute? But when you go back and watch Shallow Grave now, it's so artistically done and stuff. It still just kind of shakes you to the core, even though I've seen it, 20, 25 times. So I would recommend Shallow Grave. If you haven't seen it, get your asses out there and get a copy.
All right.
It's okay. And also, Gabe, it is kind of weird how your story about falling asleep during that. That's exactly what happened to me when I went and saw Call the Conqueror in the theater. Saw the beginning, fell asleep, and woke up at the end.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's a good story, Dennis.
Great stories. You feel like it's spoiled. Because you saw the end, and you're like, crap, it's spoiled. I can't watch it.
Well, yeah, but unfortunately, I didn't enjoy Call the Conqueror the second time I watched it.
Oh.
So.
Who's next?
Sam.
Oh, me? Oh, my God. Well, yeah, props to our regular panel, Gabe and Tom. Those are amazing films. And if our listeners haven't seen either one of them, please get them right away because, starting with Drive, just a beautiful film to watch. One of my favorite things about it is the way that a lot of the shots linger sometimes. Where a lot of times people want to cut really quickly. In Drive, you get some really nice lingering shots with no dialogue, and sometimes no score, and it's just beautiful. Shallow Grave, love that film. Trainspotting was my first Danny Boyle film when I was in college. I saw Shallow Grave shortly thereafter, and really fell in love with that director. Really enjoyed that film. I'm going to go a little bit different. My pick is actually still in movie theaters. Has nothing to do with what we've talked about tonight. And my pick for this week is Magic Mike from director Steven Soderbergh, starring Channing Tatum. Basically a story about a male stripper who teaches a younger performer how to party and pick up women and live the life of a stripper. It sounds at, just base value that this is going to be kind of a trashy, throwaway type movie that may see a little bit of sizzle because of Channing Tatum's recent success. I found it to be so much more than that. There's a lot more meat to it, pun totally intended.
Giggity.
And I think there's a little bit of everything for all different audiences, not just for women and for gay men, which a lot of people said that this movie would only appeal to. But because Steven Soderbergh is in there as the director, there is so much more to it. Yes, at part you're going to get some cliche parts about drugs and strippers and whatnot, but the story is beautifully shot. There's a little bit of everything in there for you straight men that take your girlfriends to go see it. You're going to see plenty of bare tits that look really nice.
Fantastic, thank you.
I think there has to be a strategic formula because it seems like every so many minutes, and it balances out as much male stuff as you see. You'll definitely get a few tit shots in there, and that's always nice to see in the movies. And I don't know, it's really well done. The choreography is fantastic for these dancers. The scenery, the eye candy for everyone that goes to see it, not just in the beauty and the body of the performers. But the way some of the shots are composed and some of the way that Steven Soderbergh tells the story really make it dynamic. There's some bad acting in there from the sister of the younger performer, but overall, I think it's a really good watch. And I know some people will be turned off and definitely won't check it out. But I think if you sell it short, you might be missing a unique cinematic experience. And I'm definitely very happy to recommend that everyone go check out Magic Mike.
All right. Thank you, Sam. D?
I was about to say, when you told me to think of a suggestion, you told me some kind of sci-fi disaster.
Yep.
And Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was definitely a science fiction and a disaster.
Yes, it was.
But that is not my suggestion. even yeah, I honestly, anyways, mine's a little different. It's going back to the sci-fi genre. It's also currently on television. It is a television series called Falling Skies. I don't have cable, so I can't currently watch the second season, which is currently airing, but I did get the first season on DVD. 10 episodes. Me and my girlfriend went through that within 2 days. It was phenomenal. We could not stop watching it. For those who don't know, basically aliens land on Earth, pretty much take it over, and now the human populace is scrambling to survive and kind of doing their own insurgency against the aliens that have taken over. It stars Noah Wiley, Moon Bloodgood. I don't know how the hell she came up with that name, but I'm willing to bet it's not her real name. I can't remember this. Will Patton, that's his name.
Oh, I love me some Will Patton.
Yeah. But it's a very solid story, very good character development. And in all honesty, I cannot wait to see the second season. It kind of angers me that we don't have cable, but then again, what would I do with it? So.
All right. Thank you, D. Well, I guess my recommendation is totally not a disaster movie or a science fiction movie. It's called Act of Valor. And I just recently saw this while I had some downtime in Iowa City off the feature. And I have to say, I am really impressed. I am not impressed by the acting, but I am impressed by the cinematography and just the imagery that you will see on screen. It was shot completely with a Canon 5D, which kind of comes close to our hearts since Gabe and I both shoot on Canon 70s. And it was just fantastic. And I think it goes with saying that a smaller budget, you get more creative. You know, you're not throwing money at problems. You're trying to overcome the problems, and that brings out the best in you. And the cinematography is fantastic. The acting is subpar because most of these guys are part of the Navy SEALs. Like, they are actually still in the military, and they did all this acting. And one other thing, while you're watching it, if you guys do watch it, every single gunshot, except for when it hits someone, every single gunshot you see firing out of the guns is real. They wanted to use blanks for everything, and they said, no, we're using live fire. So everything you see shot from the gun is actually live fire. So check it out. It's at Redbox, and I think it's coming to Netflix. I'm not quite sure yet.
So how many people died in the making of that movie?
None actually. No. But yeah, the cinematography is just, I was watching it with my mouth open. I didn't even care about the bad acting. I was just watching the images, and it was great. Well, let's move on to, I don't even know if I need to point it out. I think everyone's been keeping track, but here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Sunshine!
16-0.
God.
Yes.
Take that, Cora. You take that, you little bitch.
It's 16-0. That's our first shutout, and wow. That's didn't
glad I could
even
be a part
go
of
the way I thought it would go, but yeah, most of these never really do. But I agree with Sam. I saw Sunshine in the theaters, and it blew me away. And I saw The Core on TBS, and for some reason I have to watch it every time it's on. But let's go on to where people can find you, what you're doing later, maybe if they want to go out and get a drink with you. Let's start with Sam.
Well, I don't know if I can get a drink with you later. I'm actually off the market currently. Sorry, folks. But I am working on lots of stuff right now. We're finishing up the short film that we shot a month and a half ago or so called I Think My Mom's Trying to Kill Me. We're full bore into the 48-hour film project here in Des Moines. And so we're going to have I'll be doing a lot of things with that. You can find me on Facebook, and you can always find more information about the 48-hour film project at 48hourfilm.com/Des Moines.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Gabe.
Well, you can look me up on Facebook, and along with Sam, I'm going to be totally involved with the 48-hour film project here in just over a week. It's the kind of thing that we kind of look forward to and dread all at the same time. It's so much fun, but it's so exhausting. But we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be we've got the most participants in Des Moines ever, right, Sam? Is that correct? With 50 teams,
52 teams.
Oh my
52 teams.
God!
Yeah,
That's a full deck.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
more than we've ever had, and we have several on the waiting list that won't be able to get in this year. So
Right. Wow. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to it, and I'm going to have to give Sam kudos for that, because he really does a great job promoting that competition here in Des Moines, and it's probably one of the best in the world. So we're really looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. Tom?
People can, you know what? I will go get a drink with you. I'm married, but I'm more than happy to go get a drink with you because of that fact. I would love to. So please look me up on Facebook, and a night out with grown-ups would be kind of cool. I'm also going to be working out with the 48-hour film project, so we'll have posts up about that. Wow, that's amazing. 52. None of the teams that are in the waiting list is the crew from the Core, is it, Sam?
I don't think so.
Is John Emile putting down $60 million to direct the film over the weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I can't wait. I'm really excited for the 48-hour. I haven't done it in several years, so it's going to be really fun to get back in it. I'm probably going to get a shirt made up that says I'm too old for this shit. So, so anyway, yeah, that's where you can look me up. Vimeo and Facebook and the Cinesmack. And I'll stop doing that sound because it's kind of annoying on podcast. So take it easy, buddy.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, thank you.
Dennis.
Well, you can find me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter, but more importantly, you can follow Character Smack on Twitter. It's at Character Smack. And then if you have any ideas for any future episodes of Character Smack, you can email us at charactersmack@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, D.
Just plugging my own show there.
Yeah, no problem. There you go. I'm kind of a part of that sometimes.
So I've heard.
So yeah, I've heard that too.
Didn't Harvey Firestein host Plug Away on Saturday Night Live? Plug Away! Sorry.
Sorry, that hit me as funny.
Let's say, Gabe, you're going to be on the next episode, aren't you?
Harvey.
I don't know about the next episode. Maybe, I guess. It
hold on.
depends on how many Cinesmack episodes we try to fit in.
All right. Hold on here. Sam.
Yes.
I need Jimmy Stewart doing Harvey Firestein.
Oh, that's disgusting.
No. I mean, doing an impression of Harvey.
Oh, Jimmy, you're so cute. Well, what are you doing? Don't touch me there. I'm a straight man. Oh, that's what everybody says.
Oh my god, can Harvey get his own show?
I am in tears.
I would
Welcome back to Harvey Smack, everybody. It's gonna be a great show. There's no guests, it's just me.
I think you might lose your voice before you finish an episode.
All right.
Did
Well,
you say you should have been an only child?
let's see. I totally lost my train of thought. I have tears.
I think we're on the
rolling down
acting
my cheeks.
category.
Oh yeah, okay. And so act. No, well, yeah, and you guys might have noticed that this episode's coming out late. I've been kind of busy working, being the DP of a feature film shooting in Iowa City called The Formula, and there'll be plenty of news on the Weber Nets about that when it premieres or when it comes out and it's available. You can follow Cinesmack on Facebook. You can also leave us a post over on iTunes. We would love it if you guys could leave us a review. That's how people can find us. And you can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter. I think I caught all the bases there. Yes, I did. Next episode, join us as we welcome Nick Wilson, and we take on Win versus The Wrestler. Sam, I literally have tears in my eyes. And so for Gabe, Sam, Tom, Dennis, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.